Hello there! In this video, I'm going to slowly guide you through this entire unit. It's actually a re-upload of a live stream that I made in the run-up to the 2025 exams. But you can follow along with me as I spend a few hours filling in this A3 poster. As it's a live stream, I respond to questions given to me by hundreds of real students as they prepare for their exams. I have 7 of these live streams that I've re-uploaded, and over the course of this year, I'm going to host the remaining live streams. And re-record the old ones so you've got a chance to take part. If you want to join me, then please subscribe so you get notified when I announce one of these live streams. It would also be great if you could subscribe because I just hit 94,000 subscribers. So pretty close to that 100k milestone. So if you're finding my stuff useful and want a free way to help out the channel, that would be amazing. Now, I don't do sponsorships for things like VPNs, but the other things I make are entirely focused on helping you get the best out of your A-level. And selling all these things helps me make the free content on YouTube. You can get this poster and posters for every unit, both completed and filled in as digital files and now as a revision book. You could also follow along with each of my main videos with worksheets. These are designed to give you an active role and make the information sticky. I also have an app for you to test yourself, and I let you use all the paper 1 for free without ads before you decide if it's worth unlocking papers 2 and 3. Altogether, it's thousands of pre-made quiz questions and flashcards. And I have over 17 hours of exam question walkthroughs, as well as lots of other resources over on Patreon. And starting now, I'm going to be doing an exam question focused live stream most weeks that are exclusive to my Patreon supporters. Thank you for listening to all of that. Let's get started.
Okay, let's do this, everyone. So gender and culture bias, this is with a lot of the issues and debates are very much based around knowing key terminology. And what I'd like to do is I'd like you to think, don't look it up, have a think. In the context of gender and culture and issues and debates, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 terms that you can be asked about directly. But if you know those 9 terms, they're going to very easily put together a 6 marks of a 16 marker, aren't they? So let's go. I'll shout out when people have got it right. Flavor's already right. Just do one at a time each. Flavor's got alpha bias there. That is correct. And Kitty going in with a bunch of them. Jeshin there with androcentrism. And they got emic. Not one that we're after, but useful. A bunch of people going ethnocentrism. Genocentric, not a term to be asked about, but you could talk about possibly. Got beta bias. Blossom, I think, possibly the first one in there with universality. That one went a little bit under the radar. A lot of bias. And I think somebody had it. Mary had cultural relativism. Okay, everyone. So I think we've got the terms there. We're going to go through these one at a time, and then we are going to reveal, see what we've got. Well, let's start with bias. Please just tell me, like, very simply, what is bias? Yeah, we'll get into weird in a little bit. A tendency to judge, that kind of works. Favoring. Closed-minded opinion. Prejudice towards a certain group. I think Ted's is probably my favorite so far. Research to let their own thoughts and influence the findings. So my definition that I've got up, and I'll reveal this in a second, but I'm going to reveal 3 of them. We want to get the rest done as well. So my definition for bias is when a psychologist's beliefs influence their theories and data interpretation, stemming from experiences and backgrounds. So yeah, there's an element of researcher bias there. We also need to be able to just define the concept of universality. Can people give me universality, please? What is it when a behavior is thought to be universal? By with a nice simple definition that applies to everyone. Lewis going applies to all cultures. When behaviors can generalize to all cultures and genders, yeah. So obviously we are often assuming universality of our findings in psychology, but you all know it's problematic because of our samples that we use sometimes. So I've got universality, a belief that behaviors apply to all humans regardless of gender, biology or culture, unless tested on diverse samples. Okay, as well. We'll come into beta bias in a second. You can see if there's a distinction there. So let's go into gender bias, everyone. What is gender bias? And this is probably a little bit of a simple one, but let's give it a go. What is gender bias? Yeah, I'll reveal three of them. When we've done three, I'll reveal them so people can write them down. Favoring one gender over another. So a little bit more technical because of we're talking about this in psychological research. Okay. Let me reveal this, and then people can start writing it down. Oh, actually, no, we don't have that as one that's revealed. Yeah, gender bias I've got is when stereotypes about male and female behavior shape theoretical assumptions, leading to misrepresentation of actual behavior. So it's this stereotypes that we have, and because we're talking about gender and culture in research, those stereotypes are influencing our theoretical perspectives. Can anyone give me a name of research? I know I've written this down, but give me a researcher that you think their stereotypical beliefs about male and female behavior shape their theories themselves. So not necessarily the results. I know lots of left a bunch out. Now, I possibly wouldn't have included Ash there. I know you're talking about Ash leaving females out of his research, but when talking about, I did say theories, and I think those of you that have gone Freud and Bowlby would be the ones that I would go straight to because they explicitly talk about gender and about behavior, and obviously born when they were born and the experiences that they had might have influenced their theoretical assumptions. So that's what I meant by theoretical assumptions. Obviously, it is biased to leave a gender out of your research as well. So I know why you've said that. Okay, let's get this the right way around then, everyone. What are alpha and beta bias? And do you have a trick about remembering which way around they go? Be interesting. I sometimes see you guys have good tricks. Alpha exaggerate, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, there's some ones that I haven't heard about. Exaggerate. I think it's hard to do a good one for this. Okay. So we have alpha bias. You're right. The belief that there are significant gender differences, often exaggerated, such as Bowlby's monotrophic theory. Some of you guys threw Bowlby up in there. So we are talking. We're talking about alpha and beta bias now. We're not just talking about theoretical assumptions. So we can talk about problems in the samples as well. Because if we're making assumptions with beta bias that you guys have put out, the assumption that gender differences are minimal, underestimating real behavioral differences. And in this case, beta bias was an issue then, as some of you have pointed out up there with Ash and Milgram's studies. Let me see if this will reveal all of that. There we go. So there's our definitions. If you're sat there and you want to write this down, then we're good. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to androcentrism, everybody. Androcentrism. What does it mean to be androcentric? Obviously, all of these terms are very interwoven. So Mayer there with the male-centered view of the world. Alpha bias is Freud as well. I would probably say alpha bias is Freud as well. Yes, definitely, Charlie. I just couldn't fit into the poster, but you're totally right there. Male-centered view, male-dominated view. And then we have obviously this issue with the vast majority of psychological research historically being made by men. So there's got to be an element there of androcentrism. This assumption that the tendency of theories to reflect a male-centric worldview due to the fact that psychologists are male. And there's a cultural thing as well, isn't there, about society itself being androcentric. Another relatively clear term, I reckon, is cultural bias. What does it mean to have cultural bias then, everyone? Will this be loaded after? Yeah, I'm going to keep this video up until the exam's finished. I'll take it down after paper 3. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we can quite say all cultures are the same, Limbs. Yeah, to assume one's culture is the norm. I have put one down. In fact, I'm going to say this for the next term. You got to stop saying paper 4. People are going to start believing it. No more live streams after this one, Jushan. This is the last one. I wasn't going to do this one until the people in Discord kind of talked me into it. Okay. So we have a term as well. So we've got cultural bias, judging behavior based on the cultural norms and experience of the researcher. Let's go ethnocentrism. I'd like you as well to come up with researchers. What would be your go-to researcher of an ethnocentric researcher? Belief that your culture is superior to others and applying its mind to other cultures. That was a really, really good and quick definition, Drooper. Yeah, a lot of you coming in with Ainsworth. That was definitely for the. Yeah, I was definitely influenced. Yeah, Ainsworth's a go-to, of course, isn't it? Especially we've got all that stuff to talk about with the cultural variations as well. I think you could talk about Lombroso's atavistic form because I think it was quite racist perspective. So I've got ethnocentrism as viewing one's own culture as superior and using it as a standard to judge other cultures, as an Ainsworth strain situation. Probably my favourite. Cultural bias and schizophrenia also works. There are a few different options here. Last term, everyone, and then I think we've got more than enough terms to put together an essay on gender and culture bias, and that is cultural relativism. What is cultural relativism? A lot of these concepts in the chat, really good, and actually would be great evaluations, great ways to develop these essays. Not all of them the ones that I would use, though I got a couple of them. Yeah, let's see what you've got. Accepting the differences between cultures from Eli. You could definitely get a 16 mark on any of the 6 sections I show you today. Okay. Then we have, let me reveal it for everyone. The belief that behavior should be understood in the context of its culture, according to it, accounting for its norms, values, and beliefs. So that is the structure of the terms that run immediately after gender and culture. Now I'd like to dive into some evaluations. So you've probably got some different ones than me. I've got Henrik to talk about, so maybe you can give me a little bit of detail there. What was Henrik talking about? What was the finding? But that was the only researcher I've got. So let's not. We've already talked about Ainsworth and we talked about Freud and Bowlby as examples for some of these terms. You can use those as evaluations. I'm not saying you can't, but I wanted to give you some different ones as well because I already mentioned those in the mind map. What else has we got? Who the hell is Henrik? I feel like this is like a band name or something. Okay, those people just saying weird. Fight or flight one is a good one. Okay, so I've got the Henrik one. So I know there's a lot of percentages that fly around with Henrik, and they're all what you've put down. Look about right. So Henrik findings are often claimed as universal, but are culture based, and we've got a 68% of studies use weird participants from Western nations. But it depends how you define that, isn't it? Majority from undergrad as well. Okay. So let's have a look at some other non-Henrik ones. So the weird participants, we've got some people define it there as Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. That's correct. What else could we go for? How could we improve the problem of there being this gender and culture bias in psychological research? What are you going to do about it? We've Hendricks is like, okay, yeah, this is a problem. Like, we've got an issue here, but like, what are we going to do to fix it? Mike, there's often multiple different percentages referring to different things within a paper. So sometimes people pick up in different percentages, so don't worry about that. Indigenous psychology is good. So I've got that down as increasing diversity in research, especially by encouraging more female researchers or by using indigenous researchers. Let's see. Blossom and Rami and Valley, they're talking about reflexivity, I think. Polarics. Polarics give me a definition: the reflexive approach where researchers reflect on personal and cultural experiences. Yeah, if we're aware there's a problem with this bias, then we can go in and we can fix it, or we can at least be conscious of it and then address it by being aware of it. So, a reflective approach, researchers can reduce bias by reflecting on their beliefs and values, recognizing how these may influence the research process. Reducing. How else can we have a good way of addressing this issue, being aware that this issue is here? One thing we haven't mentioned, I might just reveal it. Okay. And that's through reporting. So this might be something that we pick up a little bit later in some ways in social sensitivity about reporting on psychology. But in this case, if we are talking about gender and culture, we've only done our research on a particular gender or a particular culture, we need to be very explicit in how we report that data so it's not being assumed to be generalized from everyone. So I'll take some. Um, there we go. Sorry, that was I didn't go anywhere. I was just fixing a slide. I'd revealed the answers before I wanted to go further. All right. Um, okay, that was pretty good. We went through that relatively snappy. Hopefully that helped. But a lot of the stuff in the chat that you guys were talking about were useful evaluations too. You want me to go back so you can take a photo? I mean, you do realize it's live. You can just reverse it and then go forward again. But I suppose, yeah, that's no worries, Daisy. No worries. All right, everyone. Should we do this? Should we do a free will and determinism? I love this bit. Jumping in already with the definitions. Not just yet. Give me a second. Give me a second. Okay, so for this section, again, like the gender and culture, we can build our essay, if we need to write one, on the basis of the terms that AQA want us to be able to define. So there were 9 on the previous one, fewer on this one. There is actually no. You shout them out to me. What ones can they ask you in the context of free will terms? Just give me the terms themselves. No definitions right now. What terms can they ask you? Oh, okay. Free will, environmental determinism, psychic, not machine, and wouldn't fall under determinism. Um, environmental, hard and soft. Okay, I think we're good there. There was something else in there as well. Yeah, there's one more thing as well. I am going to cover, but I don't think I need to do it massively explicitly. But I'm just going to make you aware that this could be asked in this kind of section. Um, in the specification, it says right at the end of this section, the scientific emphasis on causal explanations. So the first thing that I've got in this poster is just a little reference to that. It doesn't need to go into a deep dive because it is kind of implied that this is how science works. It's a deterministic system. We're going to talk a little bit about cause and effect, online. So that's going to be a part of it too. So my little bit that's going to start this, and then we'll go into some of the definitions, is psychology as a science. Is science uses deterministic cause and effect explanations and hopefully precise predictions that are validated by a scientific method. So the scientific method is a process of assessing the validity of these deterministic theories. So there's your cause and effect. Let's go then into what would be the fully scientific perspective, which is hard determinism. Please give me what a hard determinist perspective is. Okay, we've got Ryan there with no sense of free will. A lot of people coming in here. That's good. Completely reject free will. Jishan there with a good one. All behavior is caused by external factors outside of our control. Nice. So that element of no control, no autonomy at all, and the this free will is illusion perspective. I like it. I like it. Let's go then. What is the counter to that? What is soft determinism, or middle way? I guess some people would say. Some free will. How do we have free will? How is this? Mercil there. First time I've read out your comment, but that looks good. Traits and behaviors are determined by external or internal forces, but an individual can exercise some control, e.g., via thought processes. That's really nicely written there. Daisy there with a good example of free will, which is engaging in therapy. That's I would say the CBT approach is a soft determinist, an engagement in soft determinism, saying that there are these factors, but our conscious mind can help us out there. Yeah. I mean, I did have complete free will of drinking Tango. It was probably one of the last cans that I left in the fridge. But yeah, it wasn't the only thing that was in the fridge then. Okay, very good. Let's go for our next term. So we keep mentioning free will, but what is free will? Yeah, I mean, there was someone who said that they were here just to hang out and they didn't even have an exam. That was pretty wild. Okay, actions evolved to Ryan Kane. Full autonomy. Nice. Okay, I have got behavior is consciously chosen by individuals free from deterministic constraints. So that we've got our basics there about the scale. It's a scale, isn't it? From hard determinism to free will, and then we kind of got soft determinism as that kind of middle ground. I'm not sure if everyone would like to hear it explained that way, but it's kind of how it is. So yeah, some people are slotting some of the approaches in there. Social learning theory is soft determinism. I'd agree with that perspective. Who would be hard determinists then? Out of the approaches. Yeah, behaviorists and biological psychologists. Psychodynamic, would they be? Would they be? Maybe, maybe. I think even with all of these terms, I think we will sometimes set up a kind of a simplistic perspective about like who are hard and who are soft, um, who are hard and soft determinists. But even within those, a biological psychologist, you might believe primarily we are driven and controlled by biological causes, but they may, for their own reasons, have a perspective about conscious processes. But yeah, I think it works. Yeah, I'm unfortunately, I am unfortunately pretty down with hard determinism. Can't really see any reason why not. Freud said we're prisoners of our past. That's good. I mean, I'd say that I would agree with that, but then obviously he created psychotherapy. I assume he probably felt with psychotherapy he could use conscious thought to alter the unconscious processes that led to anxiety. So there was at least an option to fix those things through conscious processes. But yeah, we really just go in a deep dive. This is A level. I'd go with it. Um, Thanks. Yeah, I did think long and hard whether to leave that bit in about free will on that video in because I didn't realize it was a little bit depressing. Okay, let's go with the three different types of the types of determinism that are linked to sections, and that I asked that question just to kind of get it in there, and I think I'll probably just talk you through them, but I'll make you give me some examples. So my biological determinism, behavior is determined by what factors? In biological determinism, it's biological factors. What are those biological factors? We've got genes from Mikey and Elliot and Bye Bye. Anything else? Just genes, neurological processes in vagus, neurochemistry, neurotransmitters. So brain structure there from Finn. So you can see here there's lots and lots of content from around the spec we could pull in as an example for biological determinism if we need to go into some depth there. Lots of biological explanations for aggression and mental health disorders and stuff like that. Okay, so that's biological determinism. If I was going to talk about environmental determinism, what things am I talking about? Environmental determinism. I reckon you'll come up with some extra things that I didn't put down here. So external factors, a little vague. So Maya, conditioning, I'll take that. Jess, upbringing. Mercel, a whole bunch there. Learning, schools, parents, peers. Lewis, social learning theory. So yeah, an experience that is going to change the way in which our behaviors act. So basically experiences, and we can go down for the very, very, as we talk about a little later, we'll talk about levels of explanation. You can talk about the very, very basic stimulus response mechanisms all the way up to culture as being a factor in our environment that determines our behavior. Okay. A couple of you already talking to me about Freud. That was great. Talking about psychodeterminism, we're driven by unconscious forces formed in child experiences. You're going to give me some examples of what might be some unconscious forces that I go on? What are the unconscious forces? Resolve childhood conflict. But give me a little example of what they might be. Okay, the id, ego, superego dynamic. Yeah. And then we've got Freudian slips. One thing that I didn't innate drive, to talk about the combination of that, but mostly we're talking about here the unconscious forces. Yeah, unknown there. Actually, one thing that I didn't put down, but you know what? I might actually edit the poster just a little bit to add this on, is defense mechanisms as well. Defense mechanisms certainly are unconscious processes that seem to drive behavior. So there we have our AO1. And let's think about some evaluations. Now, all of these are all like the orange ones. My evaluations are agreeing with the arguing for an argument. That is the main part of that essay. red if they're arguing against. But obviously now we're looking at the combination of free will determinism. If it's arguing for one, it's arguing against the other. So keep that in mind when we're going through this. So throw in, guys, if this was a 16 marker and what I've just put down for you then was the AO1 and we've got that finished, what are you coming in now with as an evaluation? Just try and bullet point it for me and just give me one and I'll pick up on some of them and then we'll chat through what they are. What you're picking. Okay, so we have got Lebert. I will definitely use. That's the only research study that I've got, and it's super interesting. Mayer there with free will's faithfulity. I will pick that one. I think that's probably. It's sometimes a little hard to come up with a positive evaluation for free will, because obviously the entirety of psychology seems to be about finding deterministic forces and finding evidence for that. So faithfulity is one of the best ones we've got. The law AO frame, I'm not sure what that means. Treatments we've got there. Interactionist approach, a bit of both. I think that wouldn't quite work in this one for free will determinism. I think we're probably arguing for both. Soft determinism is maybe where we're after with that concept. Okay. I'm going to reveal mine and I'll talk you through them bit by bit. I think we've got most of these in here, but I want to make sure that we can talk about them in enough depth. So, the free will perspective, I know one of you put in there because I can't remember who it was. Free will's feasibility. People feel they can choose their actions. So it does. There's no doubt about it. Like you all decided, you felt whether to join this live stream or not. That was a choice you felt you made. Was it an illusion? Determinists would argue that it was. Intuitive appeal is a good word to attach to this as well, and good term. What is faithfulity? It basically means validity is like it is a question about the truthiness of it. You know, is this true? And like if faithfulity means on the face of it is a kind of a phrase that people use. Does it just look right? Does it look like it makes sense? Like you might talk about some of Freud's theories, as even though they're a bit weird, maybe kind of faithfulity. Some of it kind of makes sense from the experiences people have in their family or the way they interact with their friends. So yeah, it kind of looks like it makes sense. Okay. On the other side, if you are supporting determinism or you're arguing against free will, we are able to predict behavior. You know, if someone takes a drug treatment that work on biological processes, these drugs kind of work. Whether this is a drug treatment or an illegal substance, they tend to work and they change behavior. That is very predictable, which means that it has a cause. So if we say that the brain acts on these chemical balances, and you know people take drugs to alter those chemical balances, and they work and change behavior, it does seem to mean that the brain's pretty deterministic from biological processes, and that's just taking it from a biological point of view. So yeah, by taking this biological deterministic perspective, we are able to develop drugs that seem to have a consistent way of working, because we're assuming that the brain is a biological determinant of behavior. Okay. So determinism implications on the other side as well. So we can also talk about early interventions in case like violent offending, education, employment opportunities. We can drift there into possibly talking about social sensitivity, about you know, if we do take the perspective that certain things are biologically determined or environmentally determined, is that problematic, doing interventions on people who haven't yet done a crime? Possibly. And then we've got some issues there with the legal system. I know some of you threw that in there as well, so maybe we could talk about implications of the legal system. Now, if you're just talking about like biological determinism, or environmental determinism. We don't want to necessarily slip here into a nature-nurture debate perspective, or a holism reductionism perspective, but you might just be talking about a biological determinist perspective. And in this case, maybe it would be an oversimplification. There's an element, and we don't want to get too confused between the distinction between reductionism and determinism. Determinism is you cannot have chosen otherwise. Reductionism is it's overly simplistic. We'll get into this in a little bit. I'll say that for later, actually. So we can criticize the potential of reducing behavior to a single determining factor. It could be multiple factors that interact, which is a holistic perspective. But even a holistic perspective, if you're saying there's multiple determining factors, it still doesn't mean you're free. It still could mean that you are determined. But if you just choose just biological determinism or just environmental or just psychic, you might be losing out. And the Libert research that a few of you put in was good. An EEG study that showed people's experience of making a conscious decision that seemed to be an illusion, because we could scan the brain and we could see the decision kind of being made before the decision was made. So yeah, potentially an illusion. That's a nice little summary there. Is about determinism, choice or new choice. Reductionism, it's simple or it's complex. Great. So even a non-reductionist argument can be deterministic. That might help. Yeah, most of the time I'm not necessarily overreducing. Yeah, there was one that showed 7 seconds before. I don't have no idea how that works. 7 seconds seems a long time to be deluded into thinking that you have free will, and if that's the case, it's terrifying. Okay. I think there's a Vsauce video on it. I might have to watch that. Okay, let's go for our next session. Hopefully, Daisy, you've taken a photo of this, because we're moving on. Why did I not record that? Just give me a second. I'm still here. Just fix my slide. We're good. And we're back. All right. So we're now going into the third column. Hopefully you're able to stay along with me. On this is going to be on the nature-nurture debate. Now, there's something I really, really want to nail at the start of this. Give me a one-sentence argument about what the nature-nurture debate is. Type it in, press enter, because there's some term that I'm really hoping that you're going to include, because it's something that seems to be missed by a lot of students. So when I talk about early in the chat, like I generally don't look at the papers or the mark scheme until after the paper comes out at the end of summer with the exam reports, because I like to see where students went wrong. This is something that was in a mark scheme. Okay, unknown is the only person so far that really smashed that. Yeah, okay. So I want all of you put this down who didn't put in, like the unknown did, relative importance, to keep this in mind. There are really no psychologists out there who believe our behavior is entirely nature or entirely nurture. They're kind of like straw man arguments that we put up and go, well, this is one side and this is the other. But they don't all, like, every psychologist doesn't just pick a side and then fight it out. It is for every single behavior, there is a separate argument about how much of that behavior was due to nature processes and nurture processes. It's always really both that are at play. But some things might be more nature and some things might be more nurture. So the nature-nurture debate is not one or the other. It is what was more important in shaping behavior. What was the proportion? There could be things that are basically 50-50. But most psychologists, if you're a biological psychologist and you see aggression, you're going to say, yeah, the environment was a part of this, but fundamentally it was their genes. That was the biggest element. Your social psychologist, you might argue the other way. That by me might say genetically people are predisposed to violence, but the experiences people have a much bigger impact on whether they're actually aggressive. They're not massively disagreeing with each other. They're just talking about where the relative importance is. For all of you that are revising now, if you didn't put relative importance down, please do put that down. We'll take a break at the end of the nature nurture debate. I'm gonna go and grab a coffee or something. Okay, so note that down. Relative importance is what needs to be there. Although we can, after saying that, talk about the philosophical perspectives of the two sides of this debate. So does anybody know the philosophical background of nature? So what was nature? Yeah, which way around is it? Who was nature? Nativists, Descartes, our behavior is due to our genes. Yeah, Locke was the other one. Okay, so nativists like Descartes argue behavior is shaped by biological hereditary, which is genes, with much knowledge being innate from birth. Okay, and then a bunch of you have also got nurture. So, does anyone put the term now? Okay, well, I'll just give it to you. So, an empiricist like Locke would argue behavior is shaped by learning and environment, with the mind starting as a what? Ethan's gone straight for the Latin. Charlotte has already got on there as well. An unknown has as well. A blank slate. Okay, so we're born and we don't have any preconditions. They're the philosophical extremes, but obviously it's always seen as a combination. Okay, let's get that up. Okay, so we've got those as the philosophical backgrounds, but really what we're talking about psychology here. So fundamentally, what are nature theories that we deal with in psychology? So it could be in the compulsory units, or it can be in some of your additional units. If you're talking about the nature nurture debate, what you bring in it as an example of a theory that takes a perspective that the relative importance is closer to nature than nurture. May go in genetic explanations for OCD. That's definitely wild use. Ashton with Bob is monotropic theory, really good. The Moa gene and aggression from Ellis. Just schizophrenia in general from Isabel. Well, there's different perspectives in that. Drug treatments, though. Excellent. Okay, good. So we've got genetics for OCD, the Moa gene, and we've got all the evolutionary theories, whether it's in relationships or whether it's in aggression or whether it's Bowlby himself. All of them align closer to the nature perspective. Okay, so what examples are you going to pick from your spec to talk about nurture theories? So we've got Bandura there for social learner theory as well. We've got Pavlov. Okay, we've got Skinner. Cupboard Love. You've got a little combination there between Cupboard Love and Bobby, don't we? Okay, so I've got theories like Ainsworth's attachment styles and behaviorism, focus on the role of behavior in shaping behavior. A couple of you already coming up with this term, interactionalism and diathesis stress model. Talk first of all, what is an interactionalist model? Before going into diathesis stress, what is an interactionalist model? So Mayor considering both nature and nurture influences. Yeah, really good. So this view suggests that both genes and the environment influence each other to determine behavior. And then what is the diaphysis stress model then, everyone? What is a diaphysis? What is a stress? So bye-bye is giving me an example. OC is genetic but can lie dormant until stressor triggers the gene. We've got Henry saying diaphysis is a predisposition. That's a great word for you, Henry. Let's make sure we've got that. Yeah, you can breathe. If you're doing schizophrenia, you can definitely. In fact, I would probably have this as in the back for this argument just for schizophrenia. Okay, triggered by environmental stressor. Really good. Just I'm noted it down here, but do you guys have any potential stressors either for the MOA gene, possibly, an aggression or schizophrenia? Yeah, literally stress, that would work. Childhood abuse, trauma, cannabis. Exams, yeah. Okay, really good examples, everyone. We just have the evaluations left for nature nurture. I will do this the same way as before because there's lots of evaluations. I'll pick on some of the ones that you put that I don't have as well. We can maybe talk through them a little bit. But I have a lot here. I actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's more than I probably need. What are we going to have that I haven't mentioned already in this AO1, but would be maybe add to a discussion on the nature nurture debate? No, I think I need to go get myself a coffee. Okay, epigenetics, great. There's a couple of you that have mentioned that. So, Libs, you put have to know. So on my posters, I've tried to make it kind of clear what you have to know, and kind of everything else is a nice to know. So the stuff in purple and the titles are the have to know. AQA are pretty good at writing their specifications and writing their questions. They will ask you about what is written in that, all those words in the specification. I've plucked them out and put them in the poster in purple. So you're like, well, they can ask me about this term. I need to have something to say. Epigenetics isn't in there in this part. So yeah, you don't need to know it for that. But you could say, for example, be asked about what the interactionist approach is. And because the diaphysis stress response is so linked to that, I've added that in as well. Yeah, we'll talk. We'll go into epigenetics in a second. I want to see if you've got some other stuff for me. Is there an approach, guys, that seems particularly good at taking a nature and nurture perspective? Yeah, mate, I would go for that. I would go for psychodynamics. Could we go cognitive? I can see the argument there, but I think there's a nice element of Freud that we can use to explain nature nurture. Does anyone know? A bunch of you talked to me about twins studies. Does anyone know the percentages for the OCD and schizophrenia, the twin data? 4817, that was the schizophrenia one, yeah. And then, yeah, they're Charlie in there, really good with 68 and 31 OCD. So they're the concordance rates. Obviously, those concordance rates, we weren't going to go into those. What does it mean, the fact that the monozygotic twins are higher when it comes to concordance rate than dizygotics, but not even close to approaching 100%? Because that's really our knockdown evidence, isn't it? So monozygotic are higher, but not 100%. And Mayer in there really fast as usual, mainly due to nature, but not fully though. So we're talking about this relative importance. There is a relative importance, and genes are pretty strong, but they're not the full answer. Yeah, the Gottman study comes up so often in your A level. You can just use it again and again and again. Now, I'm not going to be doing any of the topics. I did a whole bunch of posters, but yeah, I am little burnt out now. Uh, I'm going to take a rest for the next 2 days. Okay. I think we've got all of the ones. Okay, actually, here's a good one. We've talked about relative importance of assuming things are a combination of nature and nurture, but things are relative importance. There's this kind of term that I guess most of you probably won't have, and that is dichotomous. What does dichotomous mean? Okay. So don't worry if you don't have it, but it's an interesting point. Like we're trying to think of like a criticism maybe about talking about say OCD being a relative importance of nature and nurture is often psychologists, even though they kind of appreciate that there is, well, they definitely appreciate that it is a combination. When you're working as an active, say, biological psychologist, you're not really going to be thinking about the environment. You are going to be thinking about the biological and just the biological causes. And taking this dichotomous one or another view helps to develop treatments. So, assuming potentially that OCD is caused entirely by genetics, that then influence the SSRI system, um, sorry, influence the serotonin system, can then lead to the development of drugs like SSRIs. So it is sometimes helpful to not take this interactionalist view, because if you just boil it down to one or the other, you can develop a treatment. And so we've talked through all of those now a little bit. I'll just go in a little slightly deeper dive. So we've got Freud's psychosexual stages. So Freud is saying that all children will go through these biologically driven stages. They are like fundamental, you will go through them. But your experiences that you have during those stages is fundamentally what's going to make the adult that you are. That's a very, very interactionalist argument, isn't it? This biological driven stages and then experiences during them. We've got the concordance rates, and we had a little conversation about, well, what's that showing us? It's showing there's an interaction, certainly, because the genetic and environmental roles, the absence of that 100% concordance for OCD and schizophrenia, show that we've got both genetics and environment playing a role there. It's not like eye color. It's not like suddenly you are definitely going to have it because you have this gene. And then that term there I put in, I wanted to talk you through before I showed it to you. Taking a perspective actually that it is one or another and ignoring the other side does have strengths. It's up to you, Mikey. I think there's multiple ways that you can talk about it. Probably just in one paragraph, really. Okay. And this term epigenetic interaction. So I've got a definition there for you. What does this mean then? So we've got nature and nurture interact through epigenetic modifications where the environmental experiences alter DNA expressions. I wonder if any of you can go in a little deeper dive. What does that mean? Does everyone have an example? Turn on and off genes. And there's some examples that some people talk about smoking in this one. Yeah, bye bye. You've put that in. Yeah, smoking. Yeah, Ellie, the environment that you're exposed to determines which genes are expressed. Wow, Daisy, that's wild. There was a study on rats where a mother developed a phobia of the smell of cherry blossom, and then her baby and grandbaby also had the same phobia. Okay. Awesome, everyone. We have done half of this. Gender and culture, free will determinism, nature, nurture. When we come back, we are going to do holism and reductionism, And then, yeah, let's finish this off in how long do we want as a break? I don't know how long I've put down. Let's go 15 minutes. 20 minutes was a bit long last time. Okay, everyone. I will see you back in 15 minutes.
Okay, so I've edited the break out of this video. Just a quick reminder that if you've made it this far, to subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot, especially being so close to 100k. And if you want the digital version of this poster, please grab it on my website or the entire revision book on Amazon. Let's get back to revision.
Right, give me a definition, everyone, of what reductionism is. What is reductionism? Yeah, reducing down to constituent parts, single component of complex phenomenon, that's good. Occam's razor is good there, Isabel. Simple explanation is usually the correct one. There's a term though. Oh, here we go. Olivia exclamation mark. Parsimonious parts. I was after parsimonious. I didn't see anyone else saying it, but I'm not sure how you meant it with parts. Okay. So I have got what most of you have got, but then a little development on what Olivia said, which is a term that most didn't put in, so you might want to note down. So it's studying complex phenomena. Phenomena just means things, but it's like a technical word for things. So phenomena by breaking them into simpler components. And this follows the principle of something called, here we go, parsimony. We tend to try to use the simplest explanation that fits the evidence. That generally tends to be the correct one. Okay, so we have different types of reductionism we need to talk about. What two types of reductionism are mentioned explicitly in the spec? What is on the spec? Yeah, King Bob, you do have a pretty cool profile picture. Yeah, we got biological and environmental. So if we are using biological reductionism, we're reducing behavior down to basic biological factors. And what are those factors? Yeah, Isabel, interesting machine reductionism isn't in this part of the spec, although you could definitely include it in an essay, but it's not mentioned explicitly, so you don't have to. Genes, brain scans, the cell with neurons, neurotransmitters, hormones, brain structure, the whole deal there. Yes. Okay, so our counter is environmental reductionism. But there's a particular thing I want you to mention here in environmental reductionism. What are we going to want to include in environmental reductionism? What are we going to want to include in environmental reductionism? Yeah, Pip in the apple is very, very, very quick there to say we're reducing. Oh, wow, Marcel, your definition. Psychologists assume that all behavior can reduce to the simple building blocks of stimulus response associations, and that complex behaviors are a series of stimulus response chains. Wow, everybody just kind of copied down what Marcel put because I didn't have much space to put it in, but Marcel smashed over that one. Okay, so there's my reductionisms. Want to get the term parsimony in there if you didn't have it already. Want to have stimulus response mechanisms in there if you didn't already. So everybody, what is the opposite of reductionism? Another term that we need to know and define and would form part of our 6 marks in our 16 marker. Yep, we got holism or holistic. Good term. What is it then? So Jess in there with a definition, which is studying behavior as a whole, taking everything into account. Tala, ideas that behavior should be studied as a whole. The different factors interact to shape behavior and understand that this provides a fuller picture. Yeah, it's really nice. Let's say Is there anything else I want to add there? I think you've pretty much got it. We've got the examples. We've got social, cultural factors. The word that Marcel uses, integrated experience. That's pretty nice. Whole picture from Annie. That's nice. I may have seen the bigger picture. Okay, you guys have smashed holism. I'll reveal that in a second. I'm just going to try and break this. And it makes sense necessarily to break this down in this way, but we'll try. What does it mean to say that things have levels of explanation? Holism. I think holism, tomato. I think it's probably the pronunciation of either is fine. Bath or bath. I don't know. Scone or scone. It goes from the most reduced to most holistic. Yeah, we can maybe just a little bit. Akira is quite nice. It can be more or less scientific. It definitely has an element to here. Biological, environmental, social. Hierarchy of reductionism. Well, that's quite a nice term, isn't it? Okay. So I've simply put down explanations range from basic components. So we've got those stimulus response mechanisms, we've got those genes, to more holistic. And I've got a word here that I'm not sure many of you have put, multivariable levels. So rather than a simple reductionism explanation where it's just one mechanism, a single mechanism, we might have multiple mechanisms, multiple variables going on. So if you're thinking about something like culture is such a big varying thing, it's very difficult to study because of all the variables that are going on within an entire culture. That is more a higher level of explanation. Yeah. Which are when it comes to the levels kind of this reductionism, what is the most basic reductionism? Uh, yeah, biological. Right, the wise pleb, you've got a really good point there about socio-cultural explanations ignoring biological factors. How is that multivariable? Um, I do have an answer for that, but it's very, very long and very complicated and quite difficult to express, which is why I spent about a week and a half perfecting my explanation in my reductionism video. So there is a deep level why all of these explanations, and we don't need to know at this level of detail, but it's very, in some ways, quite beautiful about how biological, cognitive, behaviorism, and social, they're actually, even though we put them as different explanations, they're kind of not. There is an integration between all of them, and yeah, it takes a little bit of an explanation, and I explained it in the context of plants and the environment the plant lives in and stuff like that. I'd go watch that 5 minutes because I couldn't do as good a job that I spent a week preparing that explanation and diagrams for. So yeah, can't dive into that. So we just go with the definition right now. Yeah, it was pretty good. I wouldn't use the plant as an analogy in an essay, but it was just to help kind of understand in maybe more simplistic terms what this means. Okay, I think we're good for our AO1 terms. So yeah, you're right. Biological reductionism is the most basic because you can get below biological, can't you? I mean, maybe I can explain it a little bit like this. Like we start in psychology from a biological explanation, but what is biology? What is cells? Well, cells is the interaction of chemicals. Cells are chemistry, living chemistry. So you could go one level more reduced and just talk about chemistry. It's still biology, but you're simplifying it down to just chemicals. And then you could go one even lower than that. Like, what are chemicals? Well, they're just interacting atoms, and then you're into the world of physics. So you're more reductionist. In psychology, we don't go as low as physics, but that's ultimately where you're heading to simpler and simpler mechanisms. And the argument would be if you were like some super genius, all knowing, you know, demon, Pascal's demon, from the if you take it from a philosophical perspective, if you knew the interactions of every single atom and exactly how that chain of events would pan out, you could understand all of culture, human culture, for example, just by understanding the interactions of atoms. But the interesting element of that, and we don't need to go to this level of depth, but just understanding culture and what culture was, you couldn't figure out that it was just atoms. So you can, from a very basic reductionism, you can understand all the rest of it. So the argument goes, which is why it's more scientific to get a more reductionist explanation. It's way too deep for A level and probably too deep for most degrees. So let's not worry about that. Okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay, we're going to go into some evaluations here, everyone. So again, I would like you to throw in some evaluations that you're going to use. We'll go into what you put in the chat. I'll probably have some of the same ones, maybe do some different, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail and check that everyone's happy with how they're being said before moving on. So what have you got for me? Yeah, we've got problem of causation there and holism. We've got real world applications of reductive perspectives. I'm definitely going to go into that by the way. We're definitely going to go into the reductionism being scientific, Manny. That's good. Maybe we need some more positive for holism, don't we? We've got anything good for me for holism? Yeah, we've got loads of good stuff for reductionism. Good. Yeah, there's some humanistic stuff that we can link to holism, but I think there's possibly loss of meaning, potentially. Okay. I think we have got some good stuff there. I think I can help you out, though, with some extra bits that we didn't necessarily dive into. So we did have in the chat the scientific approach. So reductionism allows objective testing of variables in controlled experiments, helping establish causation, while holism can't isolate variables. So we wanted a positive reductionism, but a negative for holism. That's the one that we would go for. But we also have on the same perspective, positive for reductionism, negative for holism, or maybe not negative, but a different way. Both have a practical application. If we're being reductionist, we can develop and we can test drug therapies by assuming a simplistic explanation for disorder, and then holism supports the concept behind client-centered therapy. So basically, bringing into that comparison of approaches element there. Simplification versus focus. Reductionism is overly simplistic and ignores complex interactions, while holism may overlook key individual elements by focusing too broadly. So maybe there's positives and negatives of being simple or too broad. So you got anything else that everyone's thrown down? Holism too much data, harder to analyze. Yeah, that's kind of where we're going with that. Okay. Complex human experience. Reductionism can't explain complex experiences like consciousness, which is likely an emergent property not reducible to one factor. So I spoke to you before, maybe that deep dive about maybe we could understand all of existence by understanding the interactions of the principles of interactions of individual atoms, or maybe not. Sometimes it does seem like things emerge from the interaction of complex of simple objects that seem to be beyond those individual elements, and it does seem like consciousness is one of those things. It's hard to explain this experience of being alive as just the interactions of neurotransmitters and neurons. Okay. I don't think there's any more conversations in the chat there that I need to dive into. And then we could have an argument, we can have an interactionalist element here. Research should balance reductionism's objective methods of wholes and broader view to gather meaningful, comprehensive information. So yeah, maybe having different data analysis. So maybe you might do some basic data collection on biological reductionism. Let's say we do some, there's a new drug treatment and we send it out and we collect some numerical data. But then we maybe do some case studies as well. But that'll get us into the next section, really, which is idiographic and nomothetic. Can we do an alternate debate as an evaluation point? Kind of. I think we could maybe link into idiographic and nomothetic on this. Maybe use some of the terminology, but as evaluation points. But we don't want to change the essay itself. Guys, please stop talking about paper 4. You're going to freak people out. It's not real. It's paper 4 can't hurt you. It's not real. Okay, someone is going to believe it and stress out. Stop being mean. All right, let's go idiographic and nomothetic. We'll do a deep dive of nomothetic now. I really hope you didn't think that was real. Yeah, paper 4 is all 16 markers. That's all there is. 16 markers. It never ends. Someone give me an outline of nomothetic. Actually, all give me a little bit of nomothetic. What does it mean to be nomothetic? So we got making general laws, large sample sizes, general laws, principles, Greek for law, good, nomos, very scientific from Akero, universality, good term there. Do we get generalization? Did anyone get generalization? Yeah, we've got general laws. That's pretty fine. Quantitative data, very good. Yeah. Okay, let me reveal that one. Oh wow, that shouldn't have appeared. Nearly giving away my evaluations early, everyone. We're not going to break. We're not going to be gone for 15 minutes. Okay, so nomothetic research uses large representative samples to generate laws of behavior or support existing theories. We've got a generalization perspective there. So we do our study, we find some things, we make an assumption then about the broader population on the basis of this small sample size. So that allows a prediction. We see a behavior in our small sample, and we predict that we find that in a larger sample. But that's an assumption. It might not be true. We've got the use of experimental techniques. So highly controlled experiments. We can also include structured observations there as well. Quantitative data, as you guys picked up. So usually we're looking at numerical data here in nomothetic research. And we had a lot of you said universal laws as well. We could argue that before getting into the evaluations a little bit, we maybe are sacrificing validity for a high level of reliability with this scientific approach. And I should ask this as a question: which our approaches are nomothetic? And we've got behaviorism, social learning theory, biological, and cognitive psychology, would all go into the nomothetic perspective. Okay, let's do the reverse, everyone. Let's do idiographic, maybe a slightly easier now. What things would we say if we had to outline what idiographic research was? Rave was ready there. And Jack was ready to press enter. Rich in detail. case studies. Yeah, I feel like some people had typed it out and were ready for me to say go. I was pretty impressed by that. Qualitative data. I should have asked a random question that wasn't anything about that. Yeah, Jason going, you help to generate hypotheses to be tested in an authentic way. So yeah, we can have some interaction here, can't we? Maybe say that's the evaluations, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you guys have got everything that I was going to put. Let me have this down if you're writing it down, though. Ideographic research studies individual experiences, behaviors, and personalities, considering cultural and societal and social contexts. Generally, it's explicitly we won't generalize in this situation. So, because we're assuming that each individual is unique, so we don't say general laws are are out there. The humanists don't. Psychologists tend not to make psycho. Oh, goodbye, Anishka. Good luck with your forensic revision. Um, I don't think a live stream of me playing Elden Ring would be good. It would just be an unending view of the "you died" screen. Non-experimental techniques. So we've got case studies, content analysis, and unstructured interviews. I suppose you've got unstructured observations as well. So qualitative data, rich, detailed data and words. And unscientific. So ideographic is seen as unreliable due to case study differences, but provides more valid, detailed descriptions of behavior. And we've got the humanistic, and we could possibly say psychodynamics as well. Real loud, we would definitely say psychodynamics. They wouldn't like to say it, but yeah. Thanks, Dreepak. Good luck with your good luck with the rest of your revision. Okay, evaluations now, guys. We are going to be on the last one in a second. So let's do some evaluations for ideographic and non-pathetic. Obviously, each strength for one is a weakness for the other. Or we can talk about the integrative approach. Yeah, that's a good, Ethan. Misinterpretation results. General trends may not represent the population. Superficial. Fixed criteria not giving a complete picture of individuals. Nice. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Non-authentic approach, so data is easy to replicate and analyze statistically, allowing generalization and prediction. Standardized methods reduce bias, but may not reflect individual differences. And then we've got ideographic approach, provides rich, detailed data, providing a more valid perspective on behavior, but while not generalizable, it can generate new research and challenge theories. However, it's time-consuming and can affect objectivity. So we've kind of built in a few evaluations for each, so they're kind of cheating a little bit there and giving a few evaluations in one bullet point. We probably want to break those apart a little bit in a real essay. Actually, bye-bye. And then we do have what a bunch of you have mentioned as well, the integrative approach. I reckon this would be a really good final evaluations in this section. So we're going to use both methods and combine their strengths. And we can offer maybe a more holistic understanding of behavior. I quite liked, maybe if you want to give an example of this. I did talk about this quite a lot in my social influence video, if you guys have seen this. In the Milgram studies, you have the data, you have like the raw figures about who gave what shocks and when. But it all seems very cold and heartless to see those raw data. Well, then if you watch the videos of the people going through the process, and you can see the emotions that they feel and how they kind of fight against the researcher, but they give in. It gives a completely different perspective on what's happening there. Just the data on it alone makes people seem heartless, but then combine it the individual experiences, and it gives you a different perspective. In fact, I don't expect anyone to read it, but Milgram wrote a short book about his studies, and he included a bunch of interviews in there, and it really does give a different perspective about why people were willing to give those shocks. So a good example for the combination. Everyone, we are on our last section, and that's ethical implications. Yeah. So Seabar and Stanley define socially sensitive research as having what, everyone? Having what? Seabar and Stanley define socially sensitive research as having what? Consequences. Consequences for who? Bye-bye. Yeah, impacts both the participant and the social groups they represent. Good work. So what are the potential ethical implications then? So we've got stereotypes and discrimination from Ella, wider consequences of target groups, Jack going right in there with mothers feeling pressure, maternal deprivation theory. That was a good welcome out right at the end. Yeah, so we've got lack of informed consent. So we've got these issues that we got in the studies, but we've also got wider issues as well. And I think I can reveal that. Yeah. Okay. So we've got potential consequences for participants to the group they represent. Ethical implications of research can be direct, such as participants' harm or distress, or indirectly affecting small communities or entire social groups. We've got stereotype formation, discrimination, and harmful policies. So on the basis of that, how do we address these ethical issues? What do we do to reduce the possibility of these affecting these groups? Yeah, that's a good shout out from Ellie. Issues is not implications. So we've got a debrief from Jack. Yes. Cost benefit analysis from Daisy. That's really good. Committees and reflexivity. Yeah, implications. Okay, let's reveal the ones that I've got, because I think you've got mostly the same ones here. So, how can we deal with this? Reflexivity, we had that term. So researchers must consider their biases, beliefs, and ethical responsibility to remain objective and conduct research ethically. So it's a term there we also had in the culture and gender part. How do we stop the potential negative implications of our research on society? Well, we might want to take care in how we phrase our research questions. So research questions shouldn't misrepresent or stereotype the group that we're studying. We have ethics committees. One of the considerations that ethics committees have before allowing research to take place is by taking a cost-benefit analysis to weigh up potential harms and benefits of that research on the people that are in it, but also wider society as well. So can maybe combine that cost-benefit analysis that a lot of you guys said with the ethics committee, because that's who makes it. When we present our findings, we're going to try and do it in such a way that we don't have bias in our findings, and we're also going to clearly state the limitations. And the general thing is it's not just the scientific community that researchers are publishing their research for. It's also going to be newspapers. And if you're very, very clear that of the limitations of the findings, that should help. And also peer review has a responsibility as well. So if we have misleading research coming through, peer review should stop it. Um, okay, I'm just going to go through these evaluations because it's a bit tricky to get you to guess them. There will be a cognition development poster. I've done 95% of cognition development. I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'll probably do it tomorrow. So check the website, or if you're a patron, the patron post page, probably about midday tomorrow, and it should be done. That's the last one, though. I can't do any more. So we have implications of research. The true costs and benefits of research are only clear after it's conducted, and it might not be evident for years. It could be that Milgram might not have got his original study through a modern day ethics committee, because it could have seemed so absurd that so many people would shock, and the downside of putting so many people through that might have seemed so high. They might not have realised the implications were going to be so huge from Milgram's research. Sometimes we need to take a short-term cost for a long-term. Oh gosh, definitely not live stream for cognition development. It is important that we are aware of socially sensitive areas, but it is a little bit problematic if we are so worried about research in a socially sensitive area that might have implications for the groups that we don't do any research at all, because then we end up with groups that are underserved by psychology and their issues aren't looked after. So sexuality and gender are areas where there's a lot of controversy, there's a lot of worry about social sensitivity, but then those groups don't get research done on them and they don't get support. So this fear of ethical implications can sometimes go a little bit too far. We're going to have some examples of areas that are socially sensitive. I'm not actually going to go with sexuality and gender on this one. I'll get 3 other areas. If you wanted to go into an area that had ethical implications and there's lots you could talk about, please put down the one that you would do in this essay. How come I don't do content on eating behavior? Just time, it's just me doing all this, and I teach as well. So I do as much as I can, and I generally focus on the units that have the most students. I will get around to I've got a lot of kind of draft work on eating behavior, but I don't just rush it out. I have to spend some time on it. I'm hoping to have something for the units that I haven't done anything on yet, done by the end of summer. Okay, we've got bulby and working mothers. Lots of people going for this. Schizophrenic mother is a great example. Not one that I've gone with, but awesome. Cheers on. The mower gene is great, and that's what I'm going to go with. I didn't actually mention it by term, but it's definitely what I was aiming at. Okay, statistical and frequency, got all 3 of them now. So Bowlby's theories, his ideas on monotrophy and maternal deprivation to create a gender double standard, pressurizes mother while minimizing father's role. Definitely Bowlby's theories have had a big effect on child rearing over generations. Probably a problematic one as well if mothers feel that they're needed by their kids in a way that the dads aren't. There are examples of setting the IQ level of 70. In some American states, it's illegal to execute people who are below 70. And, 70 was kind of, I know it's like 2 standard deviations away from the mean, but that's still just a number that's just kind of plucked out of the air. Like, people have died, people have been executed because they've got like 71 IQ points. And really, is there that much difference between someone that and 69 IQ points? There really isn't. So this arbitrary line has a big effect on real people's lives of where we're trying. People might still need support just above that. And the genetic basis of aggression. If we're going to start saying that aggression has a genetic basis, we're going to very quickly run into an area where we're going to have stereotypes. Or on the other side of it, we might start having people saying, well, I'm not fully responsible because I had certain genes. Our entire legal system is based on ideas of accountability. Yeah, just lying the IQ test. Maybe they weren't smart enough to lie on the IQ test to like perform worse. Okay. And that, everyone, is the completed issues and debates poster. Hope you enjoyed the journey with me. So those 6 are done. That's what I've done over the last 2 weeks. And obviously I'll just finish cognition tomorrow morning as well. But that was a pleasure. Thank you for joining me over these. I think we did 7 live streams altogether. And yeah, hope you enjoy all the other things I make as well. And good luck with that paper 3. It's been fun doing this revision with you. Yeah, it's been great doing it with the chat. You guys have been, this would be a very different live stream if I didn't have the chat to talk to. Because I did originally think it would just be me talking through things really slowly, just what I'd written. But actually seeing your different perspectives and some of the other things that you've got in your own classroom has been great to bring in. But it's been fun. Thanks for watching me, especially if you've done it over a few years with GCSE and A level. All right, bye. Good luck with paper 3, everyone.
So I hope that revision video was really useful for you. Just a reminder, I'm going to be doing some more of these over the course of the year, so do subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, you can get this digital version over on my website. I'll see you in the next one.